every month on the third Wednesday. It's a pleasure to see you all. My name is Adam Anfinson, Director of Budget Strategies and Forecasting. We are going to put this presentation on recording, and if the introduction sounds a little different this month, that's because Heidi Werner, who's traditionally been doing this introduction every month, has moved on to a new position in a new agency. So I've been asked for a little grace with my introductions. Um, let's see, Debbie or whomever is handling the recording, let's go ahead and get that recording going. All right, thank you so much, Debbie. Again, welcome to the monthly DOH Finance meeting for local health jurisdictions. I am Adam Anfinson, Director of Budget Strategies and Forecasting here with the Office of Financial Services. Lovely to see you on this third Wednesday of January. I cannot believe it's already January 21st of 2026. January is, for me, flying by. Although January can take forever, but not this year. Lots going on. We will do some overview of the governor's budget today and other things we know about the federal budget, and then we'll have a few brief updates on consolidated contract. And then at the end of the training, or at the end of the meeting today, we'll go into a specialized training on indirect rates with Vesna. So I have not seen this come up in the notes or anything yet, but just a reminder that the DOH does not allow AI note-taking for our Microsoft Teams and or Zoom meetings, where those are not permitted. If you do enable that technology, we'll remove you from the meeting and disable the technology, and then you're welcome to come back in with that technology turned off. Next slide, please. Okay, as I referenced, we'll do some budget updates. I know that I realized that we didn't even get a chance to talk to you about the governor's proposed budget because we met in December 17th-ish, I think it was, last month, and the budget didn't come out till the 23rd. So I will have a high-level overview of the governor's proposed budget, and then we'll talk also again about the federal budget, and then again consolidated contracts, Q&A, and then those training topics. Next slide, please. All right, that is me. Yes, budget. We're going to talk about budget. Another slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so on December 23rd, 2025, almost a month ago already, the governor did release the proposed 2026 supplemental budget. So just as a reminder, supplemental budget, right? We already have a biennial budget in hand from the last legislative session. This is adjustments to state fiscal year 26 and state fiscal year 27. Governor proposed that to the legislature, and the legislature now has that in its hands and is, week or two into their own movement on crafting their own budget. Some high points that were released in the governor's proposal include really a mixture of approaches. There is a $797 of reduced spending that will continue into the next biennium. So that's reductions that are then made ongoing into the outlook biennium. There's some utilization of other eligible funds to close some budgetary gaps. There is another $145 million of revenue that is raised by closing some tax exemptions. And then there's the utilization of the budget stabilization account. So it's no secret that the conversation has been it's a challenging fiscal environment. Revenues are challenging. The budget's challenging. There were significant reductions taken in the last session, and there remains significant challenges in the current biennium and the outlook biennium. As a result of that, one part of the approach is to utilize $1 billion from the budget stabilization account to defray some things that would otherwise likely be cuts. There are some broad-based administrative reductions within the governor's budget proposal, and then a 2% reduction of management related positions, which are, from our understanding, primarily based on management that are funded by general fund state or outlook funding sources. And there are no furloughs proposed in the budget as released last month. Next slide, please. So that's the holistically, enterprise-wide, that's some of the high talking points for the governor's proposed budget. For DOH, there were a handful of notable increases and then proposed reductions that were within the budget. And I'm guessing most of you have seen these within the emails that we distributed in late December, but just wanted to touch on them briefly today. Notable increases, we did receive a proposed increase of spending authority for our 988 call centers to the tune of almost $9 million in state fiscal year 27. We did have, or the governor's budget proposal does not include funding for the 988 IT system beyond the current year's budget which runs through June 30th of 2026. Fees for Shellfish, there is a proposed increase of $1.9 million of budget authority in state fiscal year 27. Opioid treatment program accrediting body sustainability, there is a proposed increase of $1 million in state fiscal year 27 for that. Newborn screening, there's a proposed increase of just over $1.6 million, excuse me, in state fiscal year 27. And then there's certificate of need, there's a proposed increase of $612,000 in state fiscal year 27. One thing to note on these, which would make sense when we talk about the budget as a whole, these are funded in primarily non-general fund states. So there wasn't a lot of general fund state coming through the budget to our agency, and I think that's true across a lot of agencies. But these ones are dedicated accounts, fees, etc. And so that's where we saw approvals of some of the DOH requests. Now, on top of those increases, there were some proposed reductions in the governor's budget. And I would imagine that most of these, again, have made their way to you via email, or you've heard about them in other conversational veins. But one of the big ones that we've talked through, or I know I've spent some time talking through in various spaces, around foundational public health services. So there is a proposed $29.1 million reduction in Section 709 of the operating budget, right? And that's not in DOH's budget. It's the special appropriation section within OFM. That's where foundational public health services is appropriated. But there's a $29 million reduction there that is made permanent, or proposed to be made permanent, in the next biennium. So the governor did not propose any state fiscal year 26 reductions to general fund supporting FPHS, but that 27 one would carry forward into 28 and 29. And then there's a handful of other ones: Birth Equity Project, Environmental Justice Task Force Outreach Reduction, Nurse Preceptor Grant Reduction, and Forensic Nurse Examiner Coordination Reductions. You can see the dollar amounts listed on the screen here and in what fiscal year they're reduced. Most of those apply ongoing. The thing to take away here from the governor's approach to the budget during these challenging times were to look at programs that had more recently received increases in funding. So, FPHS had significant increases in the 23-25 biennium, and that, as did some of these other projects. And so that was one area where budget development at the executive level required going and looking at some of those more recent increases for reductions in the out years. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so we're in session now, right? This is the slide that I show you quite often, and I think it just bears repeating to highlight this, where we are, and we've moved down from the green row now, where we ended December with the governor proposing the budget, and we're in that tan section now. So session has started. It's the short session. It runs for 60 days. We anticipate seeing operating budgets in mid to late February, more than likely, is when we'll start seeing versions from the House and Senate. That's right after the revenue update, which will occur in, I want to say it's February 18th, I believe, is the date where we'll see a revenue update from the Forecast Council. And that will be, of course, instrumental in how the legislature crafts their budget. And then we'll hope to have a budget signed by April. So that seems like it's a ways away, and it's also very close. Things move fast during session. Got to give a huge shout out right now to all of the folks in DOH that are working on our agency bill review process, doing bill analyses, as well as our fiscal teams. Central Budget Office is working through a mountain of fiscal note requests right now. I believe yesterday when I looked, we had over 90 fiscal note requests. I want to say about 30%, 35% were no fiscal impact ones, but every single one of those other ones has to be worked throughout the agency, and those are the priority within our fiscal offices right now. Yeah, and then May and June we'll be back to working through the next budget process and determining what it looks like to build the biennial budget and the next supplemental budget. Next slide, please. Here is the legislative session cutoff calendar. I probably should remove the word draft from that before we put this out. I'll make a note to myself since they have started session now. But here is the key dates. So obviously the session started on the 12th. The first key cutoff date we're looking at is on February 4th. So that's policy cutoff. That's the last day to essentially consider policy bills and report out. If they have a fiscal impact, they need to hit the fiscal committees of the respective chambers by the 9th. So that's a really critical one when it comes to fiscal notes and getting things across to the other houses. You can see the rest of the cutoffs that come through are really in mid-February. So if you think about the next time we meet, which will be, let's see, February, I want to look at that. February 18th will be the next time that we meet. So we'll have a pretty good idea on some of the cutoff dates that we're seeing there. Hopefully by the next time we meet, what kind of legislation is making its way through the chamber. We're seeing a lot of bills thus far, a lot of fiscal notes, but during a challenging fiscal environment session, I think it's pretty unlikely that a lot of things will move forward if they have significant general fund impacts. You can click on the calendar. You can go out and look at the rest of this on the web. You can review how a bill becomes a law. It's always good to review those things, but March 12th is the last day for the legislature to take action and adjourn sine die. And then the governor has some time to sign bills depending on if they come to his desk during session or after session. Next slide, please. All right, federal budget. I'll update this, and I will be honest with you, it's possible that some of this information is stale just based on a quick Google that I did this morning. So just a quick reminder, the federal government shut down back in October. It lasted for 43 days. It ended in early or mid-November with the passage of HR 5371 that funded some programs like WIC and SNAP and some other critical federal agencies through the entire federal fiscal year, so all the way through 9/30 of 2026. However, most discretionary programs were only funded through January 30th, 2026. So obviously that's right around the corner. Last week, the Senate was able to pass a 3-bill, what they call minibus. And so for terminology's sake here, you know, if the federal government was to pass one huge holistic budget, they would call that an omnibus. When they take some of these bills and they pass them, you know, of their 12 spending bills, and they pass them in little chunks of one agency here, 2 here, 3 here, they're referring to them as a minibus. So thus far, or as of January 15th, that meant that 6 of the 12 annual spending bills had been passed through Congress. Some of them were awaiting signature by the president. The last bullet there, labor, health and human services, education and related agencies, defense, homeland security, et cetera, remain in negotiation. Obviously, those are significant elements that need to be talked through at the federal level. I did see an article yesterday that I do think they have a tentative agreement framework in place to fund a lot of those. Clearly, we are funded significantly by Health and Human Services. Lots of grants coming from the CDC. So I don't have a lot of like concrete information to share with you, except that it doesn't appear right now that we are staring down like a looming shutdown cliff here. It looks like they'll be able to get an agreement through by the end of the month, and hopefully that will be signed and the governor and they'll be funded through the rest of the federal fiscal year. Don't commit me to that, but that is I've said this before and then it hasn't come through, but that's what it looks like as of right now on the news horizon. That said, right, we still have the federal grant dashboard that's available to you as partners out there. We are still updating it and monitoring it and trying to put helpful notes that indicate which grants we've had come through, but only come through with partial funding. Right now, we're looking at our grants that have a budget period that end at the end of this month. And we only have one award that ends at the end of January here, where we had not yet received a notice of award, and that's our rape prevention grant. And hopefully, if the federal government gets funded and things continue forward in a normal fashion, we would expect to see that NOA shortly after the end of the budget period. That would not be uncommon, but it is one that we are monitoring. The other one that's just worth mentioning is Maternal Children Health Block Grant. That was one that was funded partially. I know we've talked about it a lot in this space. It received partial funding in its new notice of award that came through, and we presume that it will be funded more fully once the agreement comes into place. I know that if you're in a local health jurisdiction that receives MCHBG funds, no doubt you've had conversations with the grant manager on that, and I would encourage you to continue with those conversations with your grant managers. But just for awareness, that's got partial funding out there. You should see that in our dashboard, and we'll continue to communicate from the agency perspective on what that's looking like. But hopefully those things will be funded when the federal government is fully funded. Links to the dashboard are there. User guide for the dashboard is there. Again, if you look at the dashboard and you see something that looks askew, please let us know. You can write us through the email address, the LHJ email address, and we'll respond to you if we notice that something's different. I will say that we have certainly had to do some cleanup on it since it was released last month, but those have been good things. I know that means people are using it. That means people are providing that feedback. And again, we're really proud of the people that have come together to make this effort work for both our internal and our external folks that are seeing use from this. Next slide, please. All right, that's all that I have. I will pass it off to, I don't think it's Alice. I think Alice might not be here, but I believe it might be Brenda.
That'd be me.
All right.
Yep, I'm Brenda Henriksen, and I'm the contracts specialist here at GOH, and I'm just going to give you a quick update on CONCON. And thank you. So January 26th, this month, we're actually officially starting our last 2 years of the 25-27 contract. We survived 25. So in December, we issued the December amendment by the 18th, which was actually pretty good. I was proud that we got it out that early. Coming up here, February, January 14th, the drafts were posted for LHJs, or due from the programs. We posted them last Thursday, and this coming Friday is the deadline for LHJ review of those drafts. And then coming up on the 30th, we're going to be getting all the final statements of work are coming in from the programs. And then we'll be putting all the amendments together for February. Looks like we've got about 107 statements of work right now that are going to be going into that contract, but I'm guessing the numbers will go up as the weeks go on. We'll see. And that's about it. Amendments will go out on the 27th or by the 27th, maybe sooner. And that's all I have.
All right, then. Well, we have reached the portion of our presentation today where it's Q&A time. I dumped a lot on you fast, so I don't know if there's questions around any of that budget stuff that we can help address, anything on the federal side. I'm happy to do so. I have not been monitoring the chat, so let me spot check the chat. Wow. Not sure if you heard that thump from my room here, but a closet door just fell off my closet. That's fun. Any questions out there? I will be patient for 10, 15, 20 seconds here until we decide to go into the next portion of our training today.
There's a question from Brian Hall. With Heidi leaving, do we send any question to the fiscal email or contract programs directly?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think my answer is going to be that you should continue to use the LHJ email inbox. And if someone could drop the email inbox in there, or the email address, Debbie, if you have that handy, if you could put that in there, I would continue to use that, and we'll monitor that and coordinate responses in the agency and make sure that your questions are addressed.
It's also on the screen, Adam. finance.
Oh,
And deal with
right
it
in
stuff
front of
on
my
your phone.
face. Yeah. Thanks. Any other questions? Okay, then. Appreciate y'all coming to the conversation today and hope you have a lovely rest of your day. I think it's time then I think we stop the recording now and then we hand it over to Vesna.